This video will be a complete overview of retail ID label printing from QRlogic software. We'll start by reviewing the software interface and layout, then we'll use the template gallery to select state-specific, fully mapped templates for our use case. We'll take a deeper dive and see how we edit template fields and label formats in Label Builder. Now, it's important to understand that this video assumes that you've already set up your product packages and retail IDs in Metrc. It also assumes that QRlogic software is installed and that you've created a profile, a Metrc profile in QRlogic software. If you haven't, there's a quick video in the link that you can follow that'll show how to do that. We also want to make sure that our printer's been selected in QRlogic software, and if necessary, offsets have been calibrated. The printer driver needs to be installed and set up correctly, and the printer needs to be calibrated for the appropriate label size, print method, and so on. Most of those steps are done one time during setup. If you need assistance with QRlogic software or help with integration and setup, visit support.qrlogics.com. Let's begin by taking a look at the QRlogic software interface. Now, assuming you've set up your Metrc profile, you'll see here at the top left, Metrc and then your profile. Below that, you'll see in small fine print the number of active packages synced and when it was last synced. If you need to manually sync it, you can do that right here. If you need to manage your profile or add an additional profile for additional licenses, you would do that here. Below that, you've got your printer selection. If you click the Properties button, that's going to give us some important information. If when you print, the data is not positioned perfectly on the label, if it needs to go to the right or down, you would do that here. Top, you would put positive numbers to go down. Left, you would put positive numbers to go right. It's XY axis logic. If you need to access the printer drivers, you can click on Other Printer Settings, and that'll take you here. You can adjust what needs to be done. You can get to the preferences. You can set and verify that the printer label are correct in the printer. You want to make sure that those match up evenly. So you can access all that information here. Below that, you're going to have your data entry templates. These are the templates that we're connecting to Metrc's platform to grab the data for. Now, if you've just installed the software, you're not going to have any Metrc templates. So what you can do is click on the template gallery and then click on cannabis, then select your state, and then download templates for the specific use cases you need. It's suggested that you have one template for each category, such as vape, tincture, flower. Edibles may require multiple. We've got a really handy nutrition panel that you can use for edibles, and we'd suggest you have one template per nutrition panel. That way you can print all of your gummies through that, and then if you need to move over to cookies or brownies with a different nutritional panel, you'll have those templates. But what's nice about these templates is you can typically use just one template for that use case, for that category, such as tincture, flower, vape, and so on. So in this case, I'm going to grab a template for vape. We can review the information. It's going to have details such as label size, which, by the way, is easily editable in Label Builder. We'll take a look at how we do that here shortly. But for now, I'm going to select Use Template. And notice now New York Vape 1 has appeared on our dashboard. Now, these templates are pre-mapped and pre-configured, including our business information, which we typed into our Metrc profile. So when I click on that template and open it up, you'll notice here that our business information is already pre-mapped to the label. Now, in this case, I don't have a package selected. So we've got our static text, but none of the data from the Metrc platform. Notably, we're in a demo environment and expiration is not going to get data. But if I want to pull up data from Metrc, there's a couple ways to do it. I could type in here and select a package, or I can hit the browse button And then I can search. In this case, I'm going to filter by vape. You can scroll through as needed your different list, and then you can select packages. In this case, I'm going to select package 320. It's going to populate now and pull in all this data, including lab test results that we see here. We've got our retail IDs that are available. In this case, there's 7. You can click and check the URL if you want to see where they're going. But all you have to do is hit print, and in that case, it's going to print our retail IDs. So let me pull up my handy little print to images. I'm going to change my printer real quick to print to images. I'm going to jump back and jump over to that package. We'll pull it up again. It's got all of our data now loaded here, except expiration, because that's not going to come through in a demo environment. And now all I do is print, and it's going to print those 7 retail IDs for us. So it's that simple. You just click on your package, verify your data, and click print. And the result, as we see here, is a nice clean retail ID label. So that's basic workflow. You're going to grab your templates. You'll then have them for good. You don't need to get them again. You would click on it. In this case, it's a tincture template. So I would find my tincture products and grab it. Here again, we've got all the data needed, 99 retail IDs, and I would print. So that's kind of basic workflow. Now, file drop is an automation method we're not going to get into now. Data sources is how we would connect to an Excel or CSV or database file. If you've been doing this for a while, you've probably been exporting and importing database spreadsheets to get your retail IDs. You don't have to do that here unless you want to torture yourself. It should be a much more efficient system. But if you do want to do that, we can set up a data source. There's other videos available, support.qrlogics.com, that show you how to do that. Now let's take a look at how we would edit one of these templates. So I've imported a starter template that has some data on it. Not everything. As you can see here, it doesn't have, in the case of an edible, it doesn't have a nutritional panel, doesn't have any warnings, anything like that. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to click on the Customize Template button, and that's going to take us into Form Builder. Now, there is a lot going on these Metrc labels. There's a bunch of data points. I mean, even these unit of measures are coming from Metrc. So all kinds of different data points coming in here. Each one gets its own field here. Now, most of these are hidden. For example, address, we mark that as hidden because you don't need to look at that every day. We want to consolidate the forms that are visible here to what's relevant. If you don't need something like, say, lot batch, if that's not needed, you can come here to lot batch, select hidden, save, and then when you come back, it's no longer on that screen. You could do it with ingredients, whatever. Frankly, you don't even need your lab test here, but you might want to add some. So that's always an option. So the way we would do that back here in Form Builder is we would click on Add Field. Now we have our traditional fields for labeling. These are the fields that would be in QRLogic software if Metrc was not connected, and that would be text boxes and text fields, numeric fields, so you could have auto incrementing numbers and leading zeros, drop down boxes and sequential lettering, numbering, date pickers, and so on. And if you want to learn about that, there's plenty of resources at support.qrlogics.com for that. For now, we're going to focus on these. These are the Metrc integrated data fields. This is the information that's mapped from their platform to the label. So the first one is Metrc package selection. All this is this field right here. It allows you to select your package. You've got to have that on a form, and we do. So there's no need for us to select it now, but if you were building one from scratch, you wanted to get packages from Metrc, you'd have to add that. The next one is business information. This is all the information like phone number, zip code, address, website, license information, etc. And if you recall, that information automatically maps to the label. So you want to make sure you've got that set up in your Metrc profile in QR Logic software. Coming back to the form builder, now we've got Metrc API package data. There's a wealth of different fields in here, starting with package information, some basic stuff here, and then you get into quantity and measures, which are a lot of the different unit of measures. You've also got your batch information and whatnot. Dates are going to have important ones like expiration date and whatnot. You'll see that right there. Our product item, this is going to have all kinds of different package information, strain name, volume, all kinds of different things, public ingredients. So different things you're going to want to get here. Cannabinoids, we've got all these THC and CBD and whatnot information, location and facilities and whatnot. So jumping back to lab testing, when you add this, when you add one of these, what that will do is give you these. In this case, we've got total THC, but when we come to our list, there's all kinds of different lab test data that we can put on our labels, automatically mapped and routed. So you can do your terpenes, you can do all kinds of other information here through lab test data, all kinds of different information that can be used. You can include that if you want here on your form, and then of course have it map to your label. So that's how we adjust label settings in Form Builder. And it's important to build out all your form fields, all the things you want on the label before you take the next step, which is going into Label Builder and then positioning that. But that's a quick overview of Form Builder. So to edit the label features, on our active template, select the Customize Template option, and then at the top right corner, select Label Builder. This is going to open up our Label Builder screen. And you'll see in the middle, we've got a rendition of the label. Off on the right, we've got all the different elements on the label, ranging from mapped data to lines to barcodes, you name it. Over on the left side of the screen, we've got our different template fields. Now, if you just wanted to add one thing, you could simply do so by clicking any of these. So if you click on unit weight, it's going to drop in like we see there, and you can move it around to the label. Now up at the top, we've got our font sizes. So you can change font, you can change the type of font, you can bold, you can italic, you can do whatever you need to do. And of course, you've got other important icons up here, which we'll take a look at. Starting off at the top left, this is static text. So if I wanted to add some static text, I would type in here, and you'll see it being created on the screen. We can move it around as needed. So that's how you would add static text. If I need to delete something, I can click on the keyboard delete, or I could come over here and delete it. This second icon is really, really important. That's concatenate. And what you're going to find with labels is you want to connect data, right? You don't want to add one piece of data and then throw something somewhere next to it and then something next to that, because you could write over the top of the label the data, they won't be positioned right, and so on. And that's where we get into these concatenants. For example, this is a combination of static text and mapped data from Metrc. So if I wanted to create something like that, what I would do is I would click on concatenate, and then I would put something along the line of, let's say I want to do a phone number. I could type in phone, and then colon, and then a space, and then when I click the add button, we're going to get a preview. Then I could take the mapped data, in this case from here, phone, and now we've got our sample data. We can see what that would look like. So we click it. Now we have concatenated data. We've got our static text connected to our mapped data. So that's an important one. We've also got the ability to add barcodes. In this case, we're doing a retail ID. If you wanted to do retail ID from scratch, it's this simple. Select QR code, select retail ID, these are mapped fields, and then hit save. And here it is. Now, if you need to change the size, you can do that over here. And then the size changes. Notably, we're at 65 there, 50, and so on. You can move it where you want on the label. So that's how you would add a barcode. If you need to add an image, just select Add Image. You're going to then navigate to where that image is and add it to the label. You can adjust the size placement as needed. RFID tags can be added. That's a whole nother scenario that we're not going to get into now. We can add lines, as you see here, that can be moved around to accommodate, whatever you're looking to do. We can add rectangles. These work great when they're needed. That's how you would add a rectangle. Circles, same deal. So you can add those elements as needed. Now, a couple of really cool features here are the nutrition panel and warning labels. So let's start with the nutrition panel. Traditionally, nutrition panels are very cumbersome and inefficient to work with in labeling applications. So we developed this specifically for Metrc edible templates. Notice if we highlight this icon, we get the Add Nutrition Facts panel option. So I'm going to click on that, and then we see this panel appear. Now, a couple of things. One, it's too big, and two, it doesn't have the data we want. So to make adjustments, I simply double-click the panel, and then this will open up, and it gives us access to all kinds of different things. We can adjust the size and scale. Let me show you what we're working with here. Notice scale will reduce the size so it fits on our label. If we wanted a border, we could do that here or not. If we wanted to change the header, we could do it. Getting down here into calories. Let's say hypothetically, instead of the 10 calories we see there, we need to have 20 calories. So we change it there. Now I can come to my nutrients. I can change or add nutrients as needed. Let's look at total sugars, and let's make that 15 grams, which includes 10 grams of added sugar. So I simply make those changes, adjust anything else in the nutrition panel that I'd like. You can add or remove things as needed. You can add or remove or edit the footnote, which is required per FDA rules. So once you're happy, simply click Save Changes, and now that nutrition panel will populate on the label with our edits. Now let's take a look at how we would add warnings. So up here in the toolbar next to the nutrition panel is our warning label panel. And what this allows us to do is quickly drop in some of the standard state compliant warnings. Now, it's important to understand the warnings you need on your label to be compliant depend on what other warnings you already have on the general package. So you may or may not need any, or you may need them all. So it's important to validate which ones you still need to be compliant. You can come into our warning label widget here, and then what you'll do is you'll select warnings. You can pick from your saved, and in this case we've selected New York because we want warnings for New York. We're going to do all types, and so we've got different warnings here. You click on them, you can see what they say. And so there's a whole bunch of different ones ranging from, allergies to, in this case, instructions for using a vape pen. But this is an edible template, and there's two warnings that we want. This one, so I'm going to select it, and I'm going to hit Insert Selected, and now we see it appear here. I'm going to come over to the left side. I'm going to select text wrap, and then I'm going to put in the width. And I know somewhere around 180, 200 is probably a good starting point. I can adjust that here as well. As you saw when I drag or drop it, the contents go. So let's try and fit that kind of up in that area a little bit further. Actually, let's reduce our text maybe somewhere like that. I think looks pretty good. Maybe just move it over a little bit. So we get it how we like it, and then what we'll do is position it, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to grab another one. In this case, I'm going to grab New York Warning 2. I'm going to hit Insert Selected, same process. So I'm going to come over here, text wrap, put in a value that seems to make sense, drag it over to our general area. In this case, I'm going to reduce the font, get it positioned just right, and there we go. It's that simple. So that's how you add different fields, including a nutrition panel, warnings. You can adjust the font, zoom in, zoom out as needed. Some really cool features here. This has to do with alignment. If you take the Shift key and you click on something, Shift again, now if I want them to line up evenly over here, I would push this. Notice they're lined up there. Now, if I have multiple or more than 2 items and I want to adjust how they're distributed, this is going to make them distribute evenly. Ready? Click, and now they move so they're evenly distributed. So there's a lot of cool things you can do there. I can highlight different elements. Now these 3 are locked. These 3 are going to be locked together, and I can move them around so they're not going to kind of get all separated. So there's a lot of really cool features you can do. You can learn here in Label Builder. You might want grid lines, snap tos, different default settings. You can hide these to narrow. So if you don't want your lines listed and you just want to focus on the important data, you can do that. You can unhide them or hide them. So it's good to get comfortable here. The more fluent you are, the easier it's going to be to edit and get your labels just right for your different templates. So that's a quick overview of the label builder process. And frankly, it's a broad overview of the entire process of setting up and printing labels here with Metrc and QR Logic software.